الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and welcome to our daily fiqh hour. Alhamdulillah, we didn't have it at 5 yesterday, but we did have a fiqh session straight after the Salah for a couple of hours. So if you do go on to that, mashallah, there was plenty of questions across a broad spectrum of topics, plenty to get your teeth into. In a metaphorical way, of course, because we're all fasting still. So we don't really want to get our teeth into anything until after iftar. Obviously, we're watching the Twitter and the feeds are coming through that announcement has been made in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that no Halal was cited. But unfortunately, because they restrict citing only to 2 areas, then even though the sun had not set yet in Mecca and Medina, they'd already made a declaration that no moon has been cited. Therefore, as a consequence, tomorrow will not be Shawwal, or tonight will not be Shawwal. Remember, they're 2 hours ahead, and therefore they will do 30 days. Obviously, for those of us who are going by local and support from extension, then inshallah tomorrow is the day that we should all be going out. Well, apart from those of you who are in itikaf, obviously you can't go out, otherwise your itikaf is over. Is to go out and see if you can spot the Hilal, and then obviously through the normal channels get in touch with us so that we can take a witness statement, and therefore we have that as a piece of evidence then in order to make our declaration. And then if we do not get any sightings, positive sightings from the UK, we then wait to the nearest Muslim country, which to us is Morocco. And the reason we do that, people say, what's the reason we do that? The reason we do that is because we live on an island, and it could be A, that the moon is not possible to sight, which is A, or it could be B, that the moon is possible to sight, but because due to our excessive clouds, we're always going to miss it. So for now, our criteria is that we need to determine whether that was an actual negative sighting or it was a flawed negative sighting due to our unusual circumstances. Hence the reason why that is a method that we can just assess by reaching out to the nearest Muslim country, and then we know the answer to that. So that will be the plan, inshallah, tomorrow after iftar, which is around 7:50ish here in London. And obviously it's considerably later up north, probably about 8:10 up in Bradford, Yorkshire, and maybe even later still up in Scotland at 8:20, 8:25. And hopefully if we get a positive sighting here, then we don't need to wait for Morocco as such, because we can make a statement and then come out of itikaf. May Allah accept it from all of us, those of us who have dedicated the time. Let's make this last push for the whatever 24, 48 hours that we have, so that we don't look back in regret. Anyway, with that said, let's pick up some questions which had come through the Markaz al-Ifta wal Qadha, which I forgot to pick up because it was a busy session downstairs, so I didn't really get a chance to go on to the questions. Alhamdulillah, from what I've been hearing, some feedback, it was very well received yesterday. People were very happy. Folk at home feel that their questions were answered and dealt with, so that's good to hear, alhamdulillah. So let's go with the chaps first. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. A question about the moon sighting and Eid. MashaAllah, let's kick it off with a good way. Will Eid be either Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday? Well, that depends, doesn't it? If you are going by a Saudi sighting, then it will either be a Tuesday or Wednesday. We now know it is not going to be Tuesday, it's going to be Wednesday. And if you're going by local, as in the UK, and pretty much most of the countries that are not dependent on Saudi sighting, then it will either be a Wednesday or a Thursday. Expectation is that it will be a Wednesday, but that's just an expectation. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. I started Ramadan in France, which was based on sighting in Saudi Arabia. When I came back to the United Kingdom, the masjid in my village. Oh, is it? Get the heck out of here. Anyway, so this person has come back to the village, is following the same Saudi sighting as Ramadan start. Can I do Eid prayer along with them, or should I travel for 3 hours to London or Birmingham to pray the next day based on British moon sighting Eid day? Well, I guess it's a bit complicated because you're just going to make a khichdi out of it. Before Ramadan started, you needed to adopt a particular position that you were going to abide by. So it depends in the UK what your position is. We can't chop and change. So, if your position is following the moon sighting committee that follows Saudi, then you would do that. And if you follow a moon sighting committee that follows UK British moon, then you would follow that. So I don't know where you are basically on that. Obviously, in France, you would go by what the French ulama will tell you. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible for a Muslim to do jury service? Yeah, there's nothing wrong in doing jury service, because what you're doing is you're trying to determine the correctness of something. But do bear in mind as well, if there's if there's a miscarriage of justice, then potentially you're playing a part in it. So there is that. I cannot see how you can excuse yourself from jury service. I think it's obligatory. So therefore, I guess giving an answer in the negative would be problematic for Muslims. So therefore, let's take that position that you are standing upright to administer justice and determine truthfulness, and let's go with that, inshallah, position.
If it was a murder case, and not witnesses say like one man stabbed another, so then we keep.
Sorry, say again.
If it's a murder case,
Gee.
We have to have for you to convict someone of murder.
That's right.
Yeah. And basically, no one will get convicted of murder then.
No.
Because you need to.
That's right. So what's the point you're making?
If it's a murder case, you just always put not guilty.
Yeah, that's but that would be your position. Yeah, that would be your position as an individual. At the end of the day, there's 12 people, so as an individual, you would go by what you feel is right. You know, but you cannot say somebody is guilty of murder based on circumstantial evidence. You know, there has to be some basis for that. I think that is the lot. Let's just go across to the sisters group. Okay, that's the gents. Where's the ladies? There's the ladies. Assalamu alaikum. Can you please explain how to find a balance in using the stick and carrot or even gajar halwa? Alhamdulillah, see, it's now picking up. It's going to be a new phrase that everybody's going to use. Especially in a time of the snowflake generation. Good.
You know that is.
Sorry?
You know that is, snowflake.
Yeah.
I'm saying the acronym.
Oh, no, this is not an acronym, is it? Nah, snowflake is like, you know, like you guys. Anyway, not like those people who were raised in the 70s and 80s where, you know, we had to walk to school and the snow was up to our shoulders. We had like serial killers living 2 streets, you know, walking past our house. We had Jack the Ripper. We used to walk past our house on Manningham Lane. He killed, I don't know, Peter Sutcliffe, I don't know how many women he killed. So, you know, we lived in those kind of times, you know.
Jack the Ripper was from East London.
No, the chap who was Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, as it's referred to. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not the original. Also, how to understand the balance between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah and his wrath. Focusing entirely on punishments and Jahannam can be somewhat counterproductive, but focusing entirely on Allah's mercy and forgiveness would also make someone complacent and too lax in terms of their practice and implementation of Islam. Yeah, we always work between 2 extremes. We work between khawf and raja. We work between fear and hope. We work between success and failure. And that's the only way. And the way the extremes work is that as soon as you're getting a little bit kind of like, oh, mashallah, you know, alhamdulillah, did it tikaf, finish Khatmul Quran, you know, learn a few masail, you know, I'm surfing, I'm going places, right? Then bring yourself down a little bit, you know, oh, I slept for 900 hours. I could have done more. I ate like a horse, you know, and that's it. Bring yourself back down again. If you're knocking yourself down too much, or, you know, all I did in itikaf was to sleep and all I did was eat, well, you know, you avoided sin. You stayed in the masjid. You're within the company of the ulama. So you just got to keep yourself between those 2 parameters. We never despair, and neither do we get carried away. And that is the sound position to take. And then the same way we inculcate these kind of characteristics and expectations in children or those who are under our jurisdiction responsibility. Do men who adopt children become mahram to their adopted daughters, and the same for the women and adopted sons? We don't consider daughters women. We don't consider women or girls who are adopted as our daughters. And we do not consider sons, so men, boys, that have been adopted as sons. Okay, they retain their original lineage. All we can say is that obviously we take responsibility for them. So yes, it's a little bit challenging. People say, you know, it's very challenging for a woman to cover her aura at all times in front of, you know, this adopted child. Similarly, it's a bit difficult for the girl to always practice aura in front of her, so, you know, guardian now, not father. Having said that, you know, I used to kind of be slightly inclined towards that, but then we live in extended families. And we're supposed to do that in extended families. You know, a woman can't act freely and without her aura in front of her brother-in-law. She can't have her hair out in front of her brother-in-law. Okay, she can't, you know, have a low-cut top in front of her brother-in-law. She has to cover her aura in front of her brother-in-law. And if you're living in an extended house where there's two brothers or something living in the same house, then it is challenging. So we already do that. So it's not actually a new thing, because there was a big push a few years back, especially with all the children that are coming over from Afghanistan, Syria. I don't know if Gaza will ever get that kind of support, but you know, those children that come over with no parents, and there's not enough foster carers, Muslim foster carers, and therefore they end up being put into care with non-Muslims. Don't get me wrong, those non-Muslims do a pretty damn good job, because they're very careful to make sure they will go specifically to get halal, and you know, they're very, very careful, mashallah. But that mahal is never going to be the same. You know, it's understandable when you have a completely different worldview, a completely different philosophy. So yeah, they will still need to maintain the etiquettes of aura.
So, you know about the first thing, adoption. If you adopt the baby, then same thing.
Now, if you adopt the baby and the
Baby
mother will have to suckle her,
Yeah,
right?
that I heard.
If she gives milk to her, that's a different thing.
Then it's fine.
Then it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, but obviously we in the Sharia limit that to 2 years. It's not beyond 2 years. So you know, I know there's some narration which exists. So some people think that if a woman extracts her milk from her breast and gives it even to a 5-year-old or to a 7-year-old or to a 9-year-old, it establishes kinship, but it doesn't. It's only when the child is sustained on that food. So it would only be in those circumstances. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to know how to dispose of fallen hair and nails apart from burying them, especially hair. Do we need to cut the hair into small pieces? If a person's fear they may fall into the hands of those who practice sihr? I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to be going through anyone's bins or going through anyone's garden. There are easy ways, I guess, you know, getting access to your room. Sorry? Are you still high from not sleeping?
No.
You're not high from not sleeping. You've slept a bit, alhamdulillah, but you're still a bit jittery. Okay. Maybe that's due to lack of food. Inshallah. Anyway, you wanted to say something or just had a little moment of it? No? Okay.
Barbers.
Sorry?
Barbers.
He needs to go to the barbers. You need to go to the barber shop.
No.
No, I think what you were saying was, you know, like with the whole hair getting disposal, you don't need to look at things. Just before this came into
Okay.
just go to the
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're going to do black magic, you don't just do black magic on some random person. You don't just walk into the barber and say, "Have you got any hair?" Yeah, you go. Who is that person? Who cares? I'm just doing black magic on him. Normal black magic is you targeting a person. That's how it works. So you want to go after a person. So, but the thing is, what people normally do, so I hear, is that they normally take the hair from the brush anyway. They don't take it from bins. Okay, so they'll make an excuse to go to the bedroom. When they go to the bedroom, they'll go through the thing and they'll take it from the brush. So that's assuming that, you know, that's how widespread it is. Then there's a lot more fear than reality. And to be honest, we don't really need that much help from the unseen. We're pretty much doing a bad job in what we're doing anyway. So we've got those issues. So I wouldn't have any concerns about that. So okay, that was done, inshallah. Barakallah feek, sister. So that's done. Let's just grab on here whilst you guys are thinking of questions, and then we can go in that order or any other order for that matter. You sit there, you've got to sit here, man. So assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. I asked this question yesterday, but I didn't understand. If someone says assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh in text and the other person doesn't reply, would that person be going against a wajib? If they didn't reply, like, you know, I'm not replying to you in writing, but I've replied to you in statement. And I've also mentioned previously that when I come on air and I say assalamu alaikum, then I've given salam already to all of you. So I've even got myself a little kind of get out clause with that regard. But yeah, it is wajib to respond to somebody who gives salam. Absolutely. Salam. And I also had this, I've mentioned to you previously that salam doesn't mean anything. It's assalamu alaikum. If we were ever to be given the privilege to step into the Kaaba and pray there, is this something us normal people should do? Seems very sacred, just like standing in the first saf when you said should be left to the more pious. No, the first saf is not to be left to the most pious. The first saf is to be left to the most knowledgeable. Okay, it's not necessarily piety, because piety, Allah knows who is pious. Okay, Allah knows who is pious. Ilm is zahir. So if somebody is, and that's because, not because, oh, you know, we're not worthy, you take the first saf. That is because the ones who are leaders and who will assist the imam, they are the ones who should be taking that first saf. That's the rationale for it. Piety, you know, Allah knows what is piety. And also because when shura used to be made, the Prophet Islam would turn and then address his Sahaba. So if you're sat right at the back, you're not going to be considered as part of the shura. So he would always have the big Sahaba, the main Sahaba in the saf directly near him. So they would be more privy to these kind of conversations. Okay, Bismillah. If you don't have anything, you sat here, no, anything?
So if you work in, like, you work and then the local masjid, there's only one, and they have a Jama'a, but the imam, he mispronounces the takbir, so he puts a kalkal on the kaf. Is it still permissible to pray behind the imam?
With the man right in the corner. No, don't know that.
Ah, that's what I'm thinking.
Everyone's here.
I know.
I got a gin story. Yeah, look, I thought, you know, like, yeah, I originally thought it was, I thought it was Big Raheel. But then I thought, wait a minute, he's there. Why is the noise still coming? That was a story to tell. Sorry, what was it? So, yeah, the problem you have now is if you go to some masjids up north and anywhere for that matter, there's a lot of imams that make tajweed errors now, unfortunately. The quality is not as good as it should be. So if we're going to get that kind of picky, there's people who make adhan and make a lot of errors in adhan and whatever. It just the way it is at the moment. So it would be perfectly valid for him to pray there.
Okay.
There you go. It's all yours, man. Take it away.
What's the
Open your Google Drive.
What's the position on Islamic cartoons? Is a particular sort of thing with market leader, one for kids from Australia. What's the position with that? I mean, it's animated cartoons rather than real people being recorded. You know, there's loads of Islamic cartoons. It's like a.
Are you asking, can we make the cartoons or can we watch the cartoons?
Well, both, I guess.
The thing is, when it comes to animation, obviously that is very clearly comes under tasweer. That's the issue with animation. That comes under, that is the definition of tasweer. Whereas something like this doesn't come under the definition of tasweer. Tasweer means you're actually making something. So if animation is made by somebody sat down with a pen or with whatever, then it's problematic.
It's cartoons, basically.
Yeah. Well, some now with AI coming in and all the rest of it, now it might not be that there will actually be an animator. You know, when back in the day when we were watching the, Tom and Jerry's and the Bugs Bunny and whatever, then those were animated, weren't they? They were literally an animator would sit and make, scene after scene and clip, and then, they kind of flick it through and you get movement. So, but now obviously animation will move on. So if you're involved in that process, then yes, that's pretty problematic, putting it mildly. Watching it, I guess nowadays, whether a person has access to a TV in their home or not, on most of we have all got devices. So if you apply the hukum to the TV, you will apply the hukum to all these devices. So it's a bit inconsistent to sort of have a go at a TV, but not have a go at everything else. In fact, arguably speaking, these things are even worse because with terrestrial TV, it's limited to what you can observe. With this, there's literally no limits whatsoever. If you know how to go to certain websites on the dark web, you can access things which would make our beards go, grey or grayer. So there is that element to it. So observing, it can have, I know there's a view that, I remember years ago, I watched The Message. So I watched The Message. And,
music in
it, and there was a lot of, conversation around it that, is it permissible, whatever. But just as a person in observing it, it had benefits, It had benefits. You kind of visualize something in a slightly different way than you would have done when you're looking at the hadith and when you're looking at the seerah and whatever. So if it helps children are already watching Bugs Bunny, or they're already watching, I don't know what cartoons are going on nowadays, but obviously I'm going by my childhood. But if children are watching Bugs Bunny, if they're already watching Tom and Jerry and all the rest of it, and then there's something here which is teaching them etiquettes and adab, then obviously there's some element of acceptability. But like I said, it's the tasweer element is going to be problematic if you're involved in the manufacturing of it. That is going to be an issue. if anybody else is you can carry on. If anybody jumps in, then they can do so.
Yeah,
Let have a couple. Have a couple.
So I have a hobby of buying antiques, and as a hobby, but also with an intention sometimes to resell.
Yes.
That's accountable.
If you buy it with the intention to sell, then yes.
Yeah, and would that be on the value at the time when my date of zakat?
Yes, whatever the item is valued at on the market
On that date.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every single year.
Sorry,
Every single year.
every single year.
Even if you don't.
Yeah, because you bought it with the intention to sell.
Okay.
Yeah. If you didn't buy it with the intention to sell, then no. But if you bought it with the intention to sell, then it's an item of trade.
Would that be the same as a coin, like a numismatist, like collecting coins? I know they're current at the moment.
With the intention to sell.
Yeah, but
You
on
bought
that
it with the intention to sell. If you bought with the intention to keep, then no. Then there's no zakat due upon it until you then decide to sell it. Then obviously, then it's at the time you sell it. But remember, it's at the time you're buying it. If at the time you're buying it, you're going to sell this, right? But if you buy it and saying, yeah, I'll see how it goes. I might sell it, I might keep it. Then there's no zakat due.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, then there's no zakat due until you sell it,
Yeah.
right? Then there's zakat due. But if you buy it, like, I bought this book, I'm going to sell this book. That's the reason I bought it. I'm going to sell it. But if I buy this book and I'm going to use it, and I might sell it, I don't know, then that's a different thing altogether, because you have to have a clear intention that you're buying to sell, because then it becomes an item of sale. So it depends whether it's an item of sale or an item that you're going to use that you're going to sell yourself by chance, whatever, like through eBay or something like that. Then you have to wait for it to sell, and then any money it generates, you add to your thing. It's that distinction you're trying to draw between merchandise, like if you run a store, like if you run a shop, right? You buy tomato tins, you put them on your shelf. Now you might not sell those tomato tins for a year, okay? Because people aren't buying those tomato tins for whatever reason. You might not sell them for 5 years. Does that mean you don't pay zakat for 5 years and you only pay zakat when you sell it? No, because it is stock. You'll give zakat on it. Remember, the Sharia does not differentiate between running a business, a limited company, or your own little kind of thing that you do in the garage, so to speak.
Just a question on Tahara. Recently we were toilet training a young son, and obviously sometimes made a mess on the carpet. What's the so what we used to do is we used to try and take out whatever najasa we could from the carpet and then wash it, at least 3, 4, 5 times, with water, and scrub it, and squeeze it out and scrub it, sort of thing. Is that sufficient, or what's the is there a particular method to make something back, like a carpet or a sofa or something?
Now, how you've described it is probably the best way.
Yeah.
If you can get hold of a wet wash vacuum, that would probably do the trick as well.
Yeah.
Because what that can do is that can suck out anything that's in any liquid first, and then you can put it on the vacuum setting, so it'll wash it, and then it makes it a lot quicker. But if you do the process manually, then absolutely, what you're trying to do is remove the najasa from the carpet.
Okay.
The ideal solution would be, if it's possible, but nowadays obviously you can't do that, but you can't still, because they normally tag the carpets in the corners. So what you can do, you can lift the carpet up, put a bucket underneath it, and then wash it through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they just tag them in, and you can, if you can clip them back on again.
Grippers,
Yeah, grippers. That's right. So it really depends. Some are glued down, and you got to look at what is easy. But that is one way. You lift it up, put a bucket behind, continuously just pour water through. Obviously, enough water that's going to fill the bucket. You don't go crazy, and then you replace that. You squeeze it, then wash it again, squeeze it, and then you do that sort of 3 times. 3 times is normally the measure that's given. You can smell it. That might give you an indication, and that's as best as you can do.
Yeah, it's just that with furniture and stuff, it's hard to actually lift all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You have to look at what is convenient as
Just
well.
try and scrub it as best as we can, take it.
Yeah. So as I said, those vacuums are pretty good.
Exactly with water, or would it be detergent or anything?
Detergent can be used just to cleanse it, but the water is the only thing which is considered as a purifier as such. So because you're purifying it as well, one is the removing of the najasa, and one is the purification process. So you're trying to do the purification process as well.
Next question.
Gigi.
So someone has agreed to buy a house, say next month. His zakat is due next week. So does he? So say he had to pay 100,000 for the house. Does he have to pay zakat on that house, on that 100,000? He hasn't given the money yet. Nothing transferred. It's just he's agreed to buy the house.
So it's just a verbal agreement.
Yeah.
It's not legally binding.
Let's just include both.
Is it a debt?
No, he just agreed to say, yeah.
So it's not a debt.
No.
So if it's not a debt, then the transaction hasn't gone through. If the transaction hasn't gone through, then arguably speaking, he could die in 2 weeks' time, or he could refuse in 2 weeks' time, or he could get robbed or something.
Say sign a contract. So that's a contractual.
You have to look at whether the key thing you're doing here is determining whether this is a debt. That's the key thing here. Is this a debt? And a debt can only be that the deal is done and that house is yours or on the verge of becoming yours, and that's done. If it's not a debt, it's still your money, because the key thing you're trying to establish is milkiyat, who owns that money. If you own that money, then zakat is due upon it.
And even if you sign the contract, it won't be legally binding from the Sharia perspective. As in, because of for the zakat, as in.
Well, no. Why wouldn't it be legally binding from the Sharia perspective then? Because a contract that's even in British law is legally binding from a Sharia perspective, isn't it? Okay. If you've agreed, if I've agreed to sell you my house, and we have legally entered into a contract, and that contract has been done, then that's it. It's that the only way this happens is when the contract is finalized and only exchange hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And that then they just set a date for the exchange, but the contract has been signed. Yeah. It's done. Then that sale is done.
Okay, so that's the case.
Yeah, that sale is done then.
So,
right? It's only now it's just the exchange of contracts. Okay. You could technically still come out of that sale. You'll pay a penalty. Yeah, you could technically come out of that sale. You'll pay a penalty. I don't know how big the penalty is. Yeah, so you still, there's a little bit of grey there. But the key thing you want to bear in mind is, am I owner of that money? Do I have milkiyat over that money? And if you have milkiyat over that money, zakat is due upon it. If you do not have milkiyat over that money, zakat is not due upon it. That's the kind of simplest way. And if you have that principle in your mind, then you've just got to do it. And the way, if we're looking at this exchange, then there's a gray area, because yes, you're legally bound to making that sale go through, but we know that you could break that contract. You obviously, if a few £1,000s or whatever you lose, then you'd have to take that person to court to push the sale through, which is a long-winded process and doesn't always get you success.
Yeah, as long as the keys have not been handed.
That's usually the way it's done.
Yeah,
is once that money goes out of your bank account, that's it now. And then they put your name on the deeds, because your name's still not on the deeds at this point, right? So only after on the exchange your name gets put on the deeds. Now you are a legal owner. You can actually go the day after. Even though he says to you, "Give me a week to move my furniture," you could technically go the day after and say, "No chance, get out. It's my house."
Yeah.
But you couldn't do that before the exchange. You couldn't say, "We'll sign the deal." They say, "Yeah, on your point." So that's why you see that harder line is there. There's a softer line here, but the harder line is there. So, I'd be more inclined to saying he should still give zakat, because he's got milkiyat, doesn't it? He can still get out of that contract. The way he's got to do it, arguably, is to set the contract to happen. I know he's not trying to avoid zakat, but before, so he doesn't get into that situation. Many people say this, sorry, keep the thought. Many people say this, that, I've got a mortgage due. Why can't I deduct this from the Australian folk? They asked the question yesterday that somebody's got a 300,000 or 500,000, I can't remember, dollars mortgage. Why can't they use that as a liability against all their assets? So I explained the difference, the position that we have. But what I don't understand is that if you have assets and you've got a debt, why not just use it? Because once a year or whatever it is, or at least twice a year, you can make some deposits, maybe not in the first few years of a mortgage, but you can make some deposits, capital deposits. And then so all you do is, before your zakat comes, just make capital deposits, and then you've got no money anyway to give zakat on, and you've levied against the debt. But people like to stay in debt and then not give zakat either, which is a bit of a strange sort of phenomenon.
So when it comes to zakat, if someone, so if I say my zakat is due and it's £10,000, that's the total amount that I need to give zakat.
So that's your zakatable assets.
No, that's my actual.
That's your zakat.
Yeah, just say that's my zakat. Okay, £1,000.
That's better, man. I think he is a rich guy.
So then, say it was £1,000,
Gee.
and there is a person here who is zakat worthy and
Yes.
qualifies.
Yes.
Do you give him all £1,000, or is it that you just give him up until he's nisab amount is?
That's right.
So
The latter.
So up until £250, that's it.
Yeah. So if the person is in debt £300, then you can give him, about 600.
Yeah.
Because one, it takes £300, the debt clears, and then he's got 300 that takes him above nisab.
Okay.
Takes him to nisab. Nisab is what, 3 something, 340, 350, whatever
So
it is.
the remainder of that zakat money would have to give it to another zakat
To another person, that's right.
You can't say your zakat is cleared because you gave all 1,000 to one person.
Oh, you can. your zakat will still be done. If you gave £1,000 to one person who had £100 and now they got 1,100, your zakat will be done, but it's disliked. Why? Because you made him ghani now. Now he has to give zakat.
No, but isn't his zakat only after 1 year? Though?
That's right. But you've made him into that position, haven't you? So one should avoid to put that person into that position above that threshold, because now his nisab thing has clicked, hasn't it? He doesn't need to have nisab throughout the whole year.
Okay.
He could go view zero, £1, £2, £5, £10, and be on that all year, and then he gets another 300 at the end of the year now because somebody else is going to give him zakat, and now the poor guy is now having to give zakat himself because on both ends of the calendar year he was above nisab. So we shouldn't do that. It's still valid, but it's disliked. It's still valid. Zakat, your zakat will get done, and he can receive it. It's not a problem.
And when it comes to these people who are zakat worthy, who actually qualify for zakat, so say they live in a house which is like over the zakat value. So say the house is £100,000, but they don't have any assets themselves. Are they still zakat worthy? Or do they have to sell that?
Yeah, no. If it's a house of residence, then no, they won't have to sell that. The only kind of grey area comes is that if they've got surplus to requirements, non-zakatable assets, like she's got a wardrobe of 1,000 outfits, okay, 500 pairs of shoes, right? And now she's got nothing in her bank account and she wants zakat. So those people would have to sell their non-zakatable assets in order to raise funds. But your house, a car, something which is a necessity now, that won't be included as a non-zakatable assets. It's just that people now say, folk have, £2,000-3,000 TV sets, and then obviously they want zakat. So the first thing they need to do is, why do you buy a £3,000 TV? You should have bought one for 1,500 or something or whatever, or not. What do you mean? There's so many other ways you could have managed your funds better. So what we can't do is support poor financial decisions. But that doesn't mean that they're not liable for zakat either. That's another crucial point here, because normally people end up in financial difficulties because of poor financial decisions. So if you're not going to help those people, then they're the ones who are worthy of receiving zakat. So it should be that should be a short-term solution, but then there should be some kind of rehabilitation that signpost you to better financial management, signpost you to this, signpost you to that. So at least they understand things a little bit better.
I kind of haven't answered this, but
Okay.
I wanted to find your opinion and maybe raise it if others weren't aware. But when we go to Muslim countries, we assume that, I can go KFC now, all of this food will just be halal. And then my uncle is Malana was saying that when he went, he asked quite a few of these people where does the meat come from a lot, in say Brazil, and he was saying how you can't really trust their halal process. So then what would you say when you go to, for example, even Makkah, when they've got all this food, a lot of it is from like Brazil. I think that's one of their biggest importers.
Yeah, Brazil is a bigger exporter of chickens in particular. You'd have to do your research. There's no doubt about that. You'd have to do your research. You'd have to ensure that you know where that food is coming from. So you can't just buy and think, I'm going to assume that because it's a Muslim country, everything's all right.
Do they not have land for
It's the amount of food that gets eaten. If you've got, like, say, for example, 2-3 million pilgrims, and they're all eating al-bake chicken and chips twice a day. What's that? That's like 4 million meals a day. Where do you get that much kind of chicken from per day? That's a lot of food. If you look at New Zealand lamb, all their lamb goes to the GCC, the Gulf countries. That's why, by default, not that I'm giving this fatwa, by default, New Zealand lamb is halal. Because their whole market is the Muslim countries, so they make it halal. They might not label it as halal, but it's made halal because they know it's for that market. So even the ones that they might sell in New Zealand or sell in other countries will be halal because they know their market is at. I don't know if I mentioned it during one of the sessions here, that Muslims consume 75% of the mutton industry. So if we stop buying, the market would collapse. That's how much power we have. The lamb and mutton market would collapse overnight. If suddenly somebody gave a fatwa and said that all lamb and mutton in UK is haram, and past that fatwa, that's it, the market would collapse. And the British government know that. So they need to now put measures into place that doesn't happen. Because if somebody does issue that, then it's it, it's end of the road. So, it's very important that we do know where our food is coming from, 100%. That's why we hope that somebody does some kind of research or some kind of process, some sort of certification, whatever. But at the end of the day, when, there's only a certain element we as, normal humans can do. So the guys usually behind will give you some kind of indication that, whether it's Watni or Khariji, and they'll kind of, give you an idea that it's okay, it's not okay. And you can go by that, it can be very challenging. You go to Morocco, you got problems, then you go to Turkey, you got problems, and you go to, then the Muslims thinking, subhanAllah, in England now, can't eat, I've got to, eat HMC only. I'll come over here, I can't even eat freely, become a vegetarian or something. It's challenging, isn't it? Best thing is go to your own village, and I guess, everything is cool there because you do it yourself. But one more, yeah.
If somebody was to want to become more religious and know more about Islam, where would you begin?
You'd begin by something which, you see, there's two elements to what I call sort of knowing about Islam. One is the bit which is probably more important than the other bit, but the other bit you need to do, and that is to motivate ourselves. Okay, so whether it's, reading stories of the Sahaba, whether it's going through hadith like in Riyadh al-Salihin or Zad al-Talibin, we just need to get that kind of like the drive, so we think, take the next step. I want to learn a bit more. I want to do a little bit more. Then there's the kind of what I call the more dry and can be a little bit boring stuff, which is the fiqh, basically. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, which can be a little bit sort of dullish, or depends on the ustad, obviously, but it can be a little bit dry, and it can be a little bit mathematical, it can be a little bit, scientific. We like the, reading Mishkatul Masabih or something where, it's talking about the Prophet Islam did this, and, you get these little encouraging stories and rendering stories and, moments of happiness and battles and this and that encourages, that motivates us. So you need that, but you also need the kind of brass tacks, which is basically one's aqeedah. That's the basic first thing. That's called al-fiqh al-akbar. We will focus a lot on al-fiqh al-asghar, which is how do I pray, how do I fast, and all the rest of it. But if our aqeedah is bang out of order, then we would technically not even be declared as a Muslim. And how do you know that? Because you got to know what your aqeedah is. So that would be the first step. Finding somebody who you can study a basic aqeedah text with, finding somebody who you can study some of these kind of more qissa and motivational and things that are going to encourage us, the old carrot and stick thing about the hereafter. And obviously you need something on the fiqh side and also tajweed. Why tajweed? Because the pronunciation of the Quran is essential. So that's done. So I would say that would be a starting point, and then you slowly grow. And life will, you make a sincere request, you'll go on a journey. My journey has taken me through Tabligh, it's taken me towards the Sahw, Morocco, Pakistan, and it's taken me towards Alamiya, and then it's taken me towards Iftar, then it's taken me towards that, all over. Back in the day, before I think this was in my Tabligh days, I used to do leaflet drops for IPCI, Islamic Propagation Center International. I think they were based in Birmingham. I used to literally do door-to-door leaflet drops for them. Because I thought, where do I want to start? I want to do this. So I did that. Then I used to be a researcher for Harun Yahya, who used to do all these evolution books. I used to be a researcher for him because I got a scientific background. So that I did that. So you make your sincere request to Allah. Say, oh Allah, I am yours. Use me as a tool. And be genuine. Now you've got certain assets, alhamdulillah. Right? Allah will take those, utilize those for the work of deen. Each one of us have got our own things, our own little assets or whatever, and you just implore to him. He'll answer your dua, and you just keep taking a step, and he'll make your life, you'll make decisions along that life, and you'll think that you're making those decisions. Before you know, you'll end up in a position you think, how did I end up here? I was this guy over here, and what am I doing over here? But that's because you keep genuine, be sincere. He knows what's in your heart, and say, Allah, I'm yours. But then be ready for the journey as well, because it is a journey, mashallah. But when you look back, alhamdulillah, you've done so. When you hit 60, 70, and we're on our deathbed, and we've got our children, whatever around us, or grandchildren, alhamdulillah, you'll say, alhamdulillah, I gave it a good fight. I've left something behind, alhamdulillah. and you go with a little smile on your face as well, that you can, you're going to meet Allah in a good state. And that's it. Those are the words I would share with you from pretty much personal experience. I thought we were going to do a gin session with hot chocolate and marshmallows at night. My apologies, Suhaib. Another time, inshallah. What's the ruling on using emojis? I think if we get a little bit too strict on these sorts of things, then it's going to become life difficult. So, is it allowed to buy and sell rare coins? Yes, it is. The only thing is, if they're coins which are in usage, then they would be considered as coins. So, for example, even if you've got an old £5 note, which you can sell for £10, you can't, because that's riba if that £5 note is still in circulation. If you have coinage which is out of circulation, which has no value as a form of currency, then you can sell that at whatever value. You don't have to sell it at face value. But if something has a face value and it is in circulation, then you can't sell it for more. I think there was something that was going around where people were selling, what was it? Yeah. People were selling them for more, weren't there, or something?
Yeah, I've got the 50p for the Brexit, and then
yeah, something like that. And people were selling. You can.
The Q garden was worth. The Q garden expense coin.
Yeah, wasn't there a note? A note as well. Wasn't there a note?
yeah, so there's a £5 coin.
Yeah, that's it. That was it. That was in my head.
Is that worth, how much is that?
It's worth more.
It's worth 20 grand.
Sorry, how much?
The Q garden one, there's only been 200,000 minted.
Right.
If you got a Q garden,
What they're worth
like
now?
I have, they're worth quite a lot. About, I think some people are paying £1,000 for them. Some people are paying. They're high value.
Okay, but they're still in currency.
They still, obviously, you can't sell it. Obviously, as you just said.
Yeah. So you wait now for whatever 34 years, and then you shouldn't sell it. Shalom, mashallah, that was worth it. Go in the miras.
But is that zakatable?
No.
If you've got with the intention to sell it,
Yeah,
but you at this moment in time, he hasn't got the intention to sell it. He just bought it to keep it.
But you will have to be value of yours.
Yeah, but that's with if you have bought it with the intention to sell.
No, but what we come into your possession? Oh, I got 50 pence from Q garden. I want to keep this.
Yeah, but you haven't. Yeah, that's just mashallah, isn't it? That you just hold it and keep it. Don't do anything with it.
That's what I mean. That you just
Yeah,
in the future.
yeah. But if you buy it, if someone is selling a 50, well, not 50p, but somewhere else. If someone is selling whatever it is, and you buy that with the intention to sell it, now it's come up an item of trade. But if you just say, "Oh, look at that, that's a bit fancy, isn't it?" I'll just buy that. And you buy it. You never know. One day I might, and then you chuck it in a drawer somewhere. That's a different thing altogether.
What if you receive it and then you look at, okay, I want to sell this.
It was a hadiyah at the moment, so it's not a problem. You didn't buy it.
Oh, okay.
It's hadiyah. So hadiyah is different. It's when you're buying it with it's only got to keep those principles in mind. You're buying it with the intention to sell it. You're buying an item to sell the item. It's a sale.
And the rule, I'm sorry.
No.
Because the rule of thumb is that specific currency can't be in circulation.
It cannot be in circulation. If it's in circulation, you can only exchange it for its equivalent. Otherwise, riba.
Despite its uniqueness.
Irrespective of its uniqueness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All the coins were unique in the time of the Prophet Islam. There was no mint. So basically, all the gold coins were different. All the silver coins were different. Some had little chips broken off it because obviously they didn't want to give them the total bit, so they'd buy, very little bit off, and then they used to weigh them. So it was the whole thing was like that. The whole concept was like that. There are 50p coins that have different designs which can sell for more than 50p. Yep. Adding to what's already said, we could say the reason there is so much sectarianism in Islam is due to things not being black and white when revealed in its various mediums. If things had been clearer, we may be a more unified ummah. Absolutely. But that is the point. We talked on that other day about the ambiguity that comes in the Quran, because there has to be a mehnat from us. There has to be an effort from us. So we're given instructions that we should be one ummah, but then we're allowed to our devices in order to try to understand what is haqq, and then we're supposed to come together as one ummah. We're not sheep. We are human. And this is what gives us that maqam which was given to Adam alayhi salam over the angels, was this capacity. And it is this capacity which Allah is testing. Today, that's correct. I've agreed with that. The notes were like the early £5 notes or the AK-47 code. Yeah. Children, man. Early ones like the AA.
Will they work more?
So no zakat if you are giving them. No zakat if you are giving them. Okay. Back here, if you got anything from this side, if not, we can get to.
If you're praying by yourself, and this happens to be quite a lot when, especially when I go to certain sort of masjids, and
Sort of masjids.
Yeah, you know,
So they're not masjids.
masjids, certain sort of inclination. And you're praying by yourself, so you're praying sunnah, whatever, and somebody comes to tap you and starts saying Jama'a. You're still ruling on that.
If you're praying your sunnah, then obviously his salah is not valid because he's. I'm assuming he's praying a fard.
Yeah, actually, it's happened to me here. So once I was playing Witr and some guy tapped me and tried to do Jama'a on me, and I was thinking, why did you pick me out? So many people.
Maybe it was a taqwa song. So the Noor coming from upstairs.
Debate with me afterwards as well, and
Yeah.
it's very awkward. But
Yeah.
Anyway, what's the general?
Well, you if you're being tapped and tapped up as they say in the football game, you can't really do anything because you're praying, so you just carry on praying. That's on him.
But what's the sort of? Can we do that? Can Jama'ats be done whilst you started alone and then somebody wants to do Jama'a with you?
Yeah. If you've started Asr alone, there is no niyyah required for the Imam, for any muqtadi behind him. The muqtadi makes niyyah for the Imam. But if there's a female congregation behind you, then the Imam has to make niyyah for the female congregation. So otherwise, if you start your salah, you can start your salah and happily you're doing your own thing, 4 rakats, fards or something, and then somebody comes in and he says, "Oh, brother, I know Allahu Akbar," and he joins you. Now, obviously, you start making your takbir audible, and his salah will get done because you say, "Main namaz padhta hu is imam ke piche," or whichever language you say it in, because you're making your niyyah with the imam. So if you don't make niyyah with the imam, then the problem is your salah, because you have to hook your salah to his salah. He's leading. He doesn't need to hook his salah to your salah. But there is the ulama do say that if there's female congregants, then he should include them that, I'm leading the females.
Does the salah have to be of the same level? So fathers,
Yes.
or Zohar, Asr.
Yes.
Like, so if I'm doing, there's common thing again, where Asr time for certain schools start earlier.
Yes.
You're praying Zohar.
Yes.
And then some guy who's going to do Asr.
That's right. No. You have to, because obviously your niyyah is completely different, isn't it?
Yeah. So it has to be the equivalent.
Yeah, because your niyyah is different, isn't it? Your niyyah is different.
Yeah, but that makes me wonder, why is it happening? How does it
Because it's an expectation, isn't that this is what you're doing?
I did that one on travel.
Assumption. Sorry, good point.
So I did that once on travel.
Yeah.
It was just post Maghrib. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get my Maghrib in.
Yeah.
He was praying Isha because he was doing.
Jama'a ben.
Yeah. So what do I do in that situation?
Well, you just pray your salah, don't you? You can't really stop anybody.
Yeah, but as in I've tapped him.
You tapped him.
No, as in I just joined the Jama'a thinking, this is Maghrib, and I joined the Jama'a.
And he's prayed
He prayed
Isha.
Isha, yeah.
Yeah, so your salah's not done, is it?
So I just repeat it.
Yeah, because he's 4 rakats, Maghrib's 3 rakats. Yeah. So maybe it's this guy who's tapping you on the shoulder.
Damn, cool.
Just want to say these sessions are not dull and very helpful. Alhamdulillah. I'm glad. Agreed, says Hamza. Yes, says Suhaib. SubhanAllah, we got a little team on here. Should we tap people and join them? Or you just pray your own salah. It doesn't really happen when you go into a masjid that someone's going to be praying alone. We know what salah time is. Pray your salah at that time. Otherwise, you're going to get confused as to what's going on.
So, as you were saying, so if the man taps you and he's with his family, like his 2 daughters or something, so then in salah, the imam can make the intention to include the women.
That's right.
He doesn't have to do it before the salah.
How's he going to do
Nah.
that?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult when he's doing that after the niyyah has been made. It's a bit challenging then. So he can only he's started his salah now. He's done. So the only one who's making his niyyah is the guy joining. So he cannot kind of just sort of say that, I'm going to make niyyah for the women now as well, because his salah, what about the first 2 rakats that he prayed or whatever? So it's probably not wise to do it in that way. He should put on his back, I am Hanafi.
But that doesn't make a difference, because the guy who was debating me downstairs, he wouldn't have it. And I just said, well, look, just you do what you want and I'll do what I want. I just left it at that level.
Yeah, that is the best way.
Yeah.
Lakum dinakum waliya din.
I know.
And when it comes to, I know the Zakat pension thing comes quite
Especially
a bit.
when people are mixed fit and whatnot, you won't get to that.
Yeah.
You won't get to that.
You start telling me about the leaves and stuff. I said, look, I'm not even qualified for that. So just do what you want. All right?
Yeah.
So when it
Sorry.
comes to the zakat and pensions,
Gee.
and we spoke a lot, but in a methodology way. So if I have, for example, I have an unknown amount in the pension, and I don't know. So when I get to 65, how exactly do you backdate the zakat because you don't know how much is in there? So say
They should be able to give you a value.
yeah,
My pension scheme would tell me annually how much I have in my pension, what my pension is valued at.
So I have multiple ones. Like I have NHS one. I have other
Yeah. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to just. They have to give you an annual statement. I think that's a regulatory requirement. So they will give you an annual statement. I cannot see them not giving you, because obviously they can make all your money. So they will give you an annual statement. Once they give you the annual statement, you then base that your nisab, add it to everything, and then give accordingly. Or if you have a separate nisab date, all you do is reach out to the pension providers and say, can you give me a value of my pension fund on this day or near enough this day? And that's it. As long as, even if you get it a bit early, it's not a problem, because then you can use it to calculate.
Kind of going on about Jama'a. So one time I was in the masjid, the main Jama'a had already finished. So I was about to start a Jama'a with my friend, and then we were told you can't do that in this masjid, you need to do it aside. Is that
That's right. No, it's because there should only be one Jama'a. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, you see, is as soon as people come, then you're going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Jama'as. Then the afzaliyat and the honor that's being given to Jama'a is going to be disregarded.
So is that not allowed then?
It shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be done. It's inappropriate. You should pray in another area.
But if you do, your Salah still valid.
Your Salah still valid, but it's inappropriate to do. How you are a musafir, then you can say to Imam Sahib that, we're on safar, we tried to catch it, get you to your Salah time, we didn't catch it, we're just going to pray Salah, pray here. So it becomes clear. But if you're a local, then what you're going to do is, even if he says Salah time 7 o'clock, you say, yeah, be all right, we'll have our own Jama'a, innit? Like, carry on, lads.
Yeah.
And then you turn up at 7:15, Allahu Akbar, like you're, so that's the problem. They want to avoid this, and then someone else says, Salah's at 7 o'clock, yeah, it'll be all right, let's finish this game, and then we'll go at 7:30. Then there's another Jama'a at 7:30. So it loses. Then what happens is the size of the Jama'a decreases, because everyone's doing their own kind of Jama'a. Then the whole maqsad of Jama'a is gone, which is Jama'a, coming together, congregation. So only I would say, if you're traveling, then, mention it to the Imam or whoever the committee is, that, look, literally we were trying to get here. We've come from Newcastle or whatever. So we're just going to pray our Salah with Jama'a. So at least they know. And even then, you should try to find a separate area, private, because what we know, if it's one hall, then pray to a side. Don't stand on the musalla of the Imam. Pray 4 or 5 safs down, put a chair in front and pray to the side. But if possible, pray in another room. So then the honor of that Jama'a has to be there. The respect of the Jama'a, the afzaliyat of the Jama'a, the congregation has to have that robe about it, that you've missed something, or Salah has missed you. It's not like otherwise you become very blasé. You become a little bit easygoing with that. Anything anymore? Just do the chakra again. Back to you. I think we can. So unless you guys have questions, we're gonna stick down here for a little bit. And if you feel you got
Hijrah, I was gonna ask about.
All right.
Hijrah,
Okay.
Yeah. Do you feel that, or is it really necessary to do Hijrah from this country in this time that we're in? And how important is it? And where would you suggest to go if you was to go anywhere?
When it comes to Hijrah, why is Hijrah legislated? It is based on the fact of how easily it is for you to practice your religion. So if you can't practice your religion, for example, you don't have young children because they've all grown up, so you're not having to send them to schools where potentially they're going to be taught about, say, LGBTQ and all the rest of it, and it's going to confuse them, and they're going to come home. I was talking to a few Satis as well, and there's been a few cases even in Islamic schools about so lesbianism. So it's coming. Our kids are experimenting. It's natural. Lads will smoke cigarettes even though they get told millions of times don't smoke cigarettes. Lads will smoke weed even though they know not to smoke weed. So I appreciate it's slightly different, you could say, because it's a physical encounter. But having said that, it's young people experiment. They want to see what it's about. And if they're not getting access to, say, lads or so, then those desires are still there. And if they've not been told to, or they're struggling to manage them because they're being provoked constantly by social media and all the rest of it, it is a difficult time. So if a person is in those circumstances and he fears the loss of iman of his children, then, you know, what's left? What else do you want? You know, if your children lose their iman, what's the point of being alive? You know, there's no maqsad left. There's no maza. There's no, you know, it just feels numb. It just feels, you know, we're just like, you know, sheep just going through the process, just getting old and then dropping in a hole. So it's not really a good way. So it really depends on each person. If a person's in an environment where he's around friends that just don't let him go, you know, he's got some like old crew and he's had, you know, doing, you know, old things with these guys. Now he wants to grow up a little bit. He wants to say, look, yeah, we had some good times. We had a bit of fun, a bit of a laugh, but, you know, I'm 30 years old. I'm 35 years old. I want to go to the masjid. I want to do this and this. And like, are you for real? You know, let's go that club. Let's go here. Let's go that. And this poor guy can't get out of this network because it's an old friends network. Of course, now this guy should make hijrah. He doesn't have to make hijrah to Timbuktu, but he has to move from that area. He has to move from that circle because this is not good for him. So if you're in an environment which is good for you and good for your family, alhamdulillah, not a problem. But if you're in an environment which is bad for you or bad for your wife, and maybe she's not realizing it yet because she's around, you know, certain family members, that, you know, is causing a bit of a disruption to her, or for your children, then what's the money for? Why, you know, what's the maqsad for what? You know, this is our life. This is iman is our life. Why? Because we believe in the akhirah. That's our life. This is just to get through. This is just a passage. This is just a travel from one point to the other point. Obviously, we can live it well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we have to become, you know, like Sufis and have, you know, that's it. And what I'm saying is, but it is a means to an end. It's not the end. So therefore, if things aren't right, then a person should do whatever he can within his power, go wherever he wants in his power in order to get that level of stability. Where he goes, he's got to look at himself. Obviously, he's got to find a means of income. He's got to find a place which is, you know, acceptable for him socially. There's obviously now restrictions with, you know, passports and visas. So he's got to look at that. So he's got to weigh all that up. I guess, you know, for someone like me who's got, you know, Pakistani heritage, and his family come from a village, you know, I could, if I felt, I could just go live in that village, you know. No one says anything to you there. You know, you're your own king, literally, you know. And there's going to be none of that kind of exposure. You know, but could I go to, say, Islamabad or Karachi? Probably not. Why? Because what's different there than here? You know, when you go to, is it Faisal Masjid in Islamabad? You know, there's women there dressed in a manner that is next level. You know, so that's a masjid. So, you know, so it's not like there's an easy answer. You just got to find what works for you. And, you know, for other people, they don't have that luxury of having parents from, say, someone like Pakistan, where they can get Pakistani dual nationality as well. Some countries don't give you dual nationality. So what do folk like that do? So each person's got to look at himself. He's got to look at his wife if he's got a wife. And he's got to look at his kids if he's got kids, and make that decision. Because what you want to do is die with iman. That's your goal. You got to die with iman. And if that is going to be a difficult path, then why put yourself in harm's way? Why risk dying not on iman? Why even risk that? It's not even worth taking the risk, you know, because I hope that kind of gives you the general maghaz of it.
Going back to Salah, how many, if a space comes in front of you whilst in Jama'a, you can move one space.
Yeah.
But is there a maximum of other spaces that can be moved?
No, as long as you don't move that space in one fixed movement, as in 3 or 4 steps, that you take a step, pause for a little bit, take a step, pause a little bit, take a step, pause a little bit. Because what you don't want to be doing is walking. Because walking is something you don't do in Salah. So you have to be careful. Obviously, you don't move your chest away from Qibla. So if it's something opens up in front of you, then take a step, wait a few seconds, take a step, wait a few seconds. And by the time you take the 3rd step, you're in the Sahw. Then if you see that, oh, subhanAllah, there's another, you know, gap right in front of you and no one seems to be moving, okay, take a few steps, wait a little bit, take a few steps, wait a little bit. Because the thing is, al-amalu kathir is something in which it goes against the actions of Salah. Now, technically, walking is going against actions of Salah, so you're minimizing it to the best of your ability.
Do we drag our feet rather than walk?
Or you're gonna like moonwalk or something.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Subhanallah. I like to see that.
So we're supposed to
Yeah,
drink
that's
our
what I mean.
food.
You're minimizing the actions, non-actions of salah. You're minimizing that. So however way you can minimize it, whether you slide the feet or whatever way, you're trying to minimize. So someone obviously it's clear that you are doing something, because you're the only guy out of the stuff. So it's obvious, but you're just trying to minimize it. That's why even if, like, for example, there's like some hair or something that's tickling your nose when you're putting it into sajda, then you've got to do it in such a way where you kind of like fan your hands out as you're going into sajda, not like, picking it and whatever. So everything is done in smooth motions, in motions which would give an onlook at the view that you're still in salah.
Is it correct in the Hanafi that whilst you're praying salah, if a woman touches you, including if it's mahram, then the salah breaks?
No. There is your salah in Jama'a is problematic if you have a woman to your right, to your left, or in front of you, because according to our salah, that would mess your salah up. We cannot be in the same saf with a woman, nor be behind the saf in a woman. This only becomes an issue in that.
No, I mean, like, for example, if you're playing something, so you're let's say at home and some wife or whoever went by you and brushed by you or something like that, while she's thinking about something.
Well, she missed you so much, she just stroked you. He's asking for trouble, isn't it? She thought, he has been there. She's thinking, subhanAllah, I've not had chance to touch my husband for at least 5 minutes because he's been in salah, so I just rub past it. We're not all like that, you see. We've been married for centuries.
It's just something that somebody said once to me, which made me think.
No, the Shafis will say that if a man touches with the palm of his hand a woman, they will say that, but Ahnaf, they do not say that.
Maybe that's just my misunderstanding.
Yeah. So what should we do if Jama'a is done before lunchtime at the masjid during college? What do you do if Jama'a? Well, if you can't make it to the masjid, then I guess there'll be some space in the college. You need to speak to your college administrators, and there might be an option that you can do that during lunchtime. So as long as the salah time has started, do that. I said, I don't know the specifics.
One question that triggered me.
Yeah, well, when we talked about wives.
I've got one as
Little
well.
boys do. Yeah. Well, what time is Asr? 6:30. Okay. Gee, sorry.
So in a 4 rakats salah, you paid 2 of the best rakats of your life, and you've broken your wudu. When you quickly go to your wudu and come back, what is the procedure? Because I've read it somewhere, but I can't remember exactly.
You do bina, don't you?
That's what I didn't
Yeah,
understand.
you carry on where you left off.
Even though your face is away from the
Yeah,
camera.
as long as you don't talk or anything that would go against the salah.
So 1 minute, you've done 2 rakats, you broke your salah because your wuzu broke.
Yeah, he didn't break his salah, but his wudu
wudu
went.
broke,
So the
sorry.
salah was still intact. It only became problematic
But
because
you're
of his
reading on
wudu.
your own, yeah?
No, Jamaat. In Jamaat.
So you're praying in Jama'a.
So let me clarify. I'm praying in Jamaat.
You've prayed 2 rakats behind the imam.
Yeah, I've broken my wudu.
You've now gone.
Yeah.
Imam's finished his salah.
No, Imam's still in salah.
Subhanallah, how you went and made wudu and came back and he's still in salah?
Oops. Example.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got the little.
So you get the hand back. So so then you carry on because
You bank your 2 and then you finish.
because he's still in the third rakah. I'm assuming that you come back in.
What if you come back and Imam's at the opposition last rakat, so he's missed?
He's missed 2. He'll have to make those 2.
But then if you're praying on your own,
Yes.
yeah, and then you break your wudu, then you do wudu and come back and then what? Start again or?
Then you would start again. Refreshing it is afzal, yeah. You refresh it is afzal then because he's alone. Because there's nothing he's missing out on, isn't it? Because he doesn't want to miss the imam.
If a person had to do Sajdah Sahw and they forgot to do so, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I was just
And
looking at the
they
question.
forgot to do Sajdah Sahw, they did the salam, and then like 2 seconds later, they realized, oh yeah, I need to do Sajdah Sahw. And they haven't spoken to anyone.
Yes.
And they can do
That's right.
2 Sajdah Sahw.
That's correct.
And then recite At-Tahiyyat again.
That's correct.
And then do salam again.
That's correct.
They do salam again though.
He's given salam. So what he did was he gave both salams. Then he realized, okay, he's not talked to anybody. So he's made his Sajdah Sahwa and then he's carried on with the Tahiyyat. Because remember what you do is you do 1 salam anyway.
Yeah.
So you've terminated the salah, literally. Because once you sit in tashahhud, the wajib is done. The other wajib which is left is 1 salam. which is done there as well.
What about if they started tasbihad and then realized, is that a problem?
It depends on the delay. If you feel it's a significant delay where you've waited and paused, okay, then you can say your salah ended and that kind of little opportunity is gone. So that would be from how a person sort of feels. So if you haven't done it straight away, then I would say you've missed the boat. Okay, but as soon as you finish anything, in your head, obviously you don't say that, subhanAllah, especially say Sahw, and you straight down, then it's all right. But if you were, you're listening for about 30 seconds and then it dawns on you, then there's that pause, isn't it? So then it's better to repeat it.
Okay. And just on the Sajdah Sahw point, one more. If I thought I made a mistake and I did Sajdah Sahw, and then I met you the next day and I just asked you the question and said, oh, you didn't need to do Sajdah Sahw. Does unnecessary Sajdah Sahw validate the Salah?
No. Because you've done it after the Salah has ended, in essence. Because you've done the wajib of the shahud and you've done the salam.
Oh, no, just say if I had done the Sajdah Sahw, I hadn't forgotten, I'd done it before.
Yeah, well, you've done it after the shahud and after the salam. The wajib is the qaida akhira, to sit for the duration of the shahud, which is wajib, which is what you've done, and to give one salam, which is what you've done. So technically your salah is complete. So in essence, this is the durood is sunnah, isn't it? It's not wajib. So if you didn't pray durood and after tashahud you did salam, your salah is still valid. Obviously, if you're doing it intentionally, then you're going khilaf of sunnah, which is problematic from a theoretical perspective in that sense. So yes, it would be valid. And obviously you would correct your position and understanding about, and that shouldn't be that person does Sajdah Sahw every time thinking, you know what, I better be on the safe side, I better bank this and do a Sajdah Sahw in case I made a mistake. You shouldn't do that. It is only there to repair a wajib that person has made a mistake with. It is not there for anything else. Salamun alaik. In the end of a surah Qasas, Allah says everything will perish except for his face. Why is face mentioned here instead of God? We just mentioned this previously in Surah Ali Imran, that most of the verses are muhkamat, wa hunna ummul kitab, and they make up the majority of the book. And there are others which are mutashabihat, which are ambiguous. And those people whose hearts are problematic or whatever, they start to seek the understanding of the ambiguous and try to see its interpretation. These words in which the word wajh is mentioned, which translates to face, yadain or yad is mentioned, which translates to hands, saq is mentioned, which translates to shin, and all these things, the position I adopt is we believe in them and we don't seek to interpret them. We don't take a literalist view because that becomes anthropomorphic. Right? We don't take a literal, like Allah's hands, like hands has digits, like a hand is on the end of a wrist, like a wrist is on the end of an arm, and like the arm is onto a torso, because you're now becoming anthropomorphic. You're ascribing human characteristics to God, which you cannot do. Yeah. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like him. And when we say Surah Ikhlas, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid, wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. There is nobody comparable to him. So these are our principles. So in that regard, these are the verses that is being referred to. When Allah uses the word wajh, yadain, wa nafakha, he blew. Yeah, the soul blowing normally implies like this, but then that implies lips, which implies a mouth, which implies a face, and we could go on. So we believe in them because it's part of the Quran. You have to be a Muslim, you have to believe in every single verse of the Quran. You cannot deny a single verse or even half of a verse or even a quarter of the verse of the Quran. Immediately become a non-Muslim as a result. There's no two ways of looking at it. If it's due to jahiliyat, then somebody will inform that brother. Let's just say he's having an argument and say, oh, I don't believe that anyway. So, oh, brother, easy, tiger. You do know that's a verse of the Quran. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Astaghfirullah. I didn't know. Yeah, but you shouldn't be, debating that if you don't know what is verse of the Quran, what isn't verse of the Quran. Did you answer my question with regards to blowing the nose in Salah? I saw the question, Hamza, and I ignored it. So, but I like your husn then that I might have missed it. I didn't. I saw it and I chose to ignore it. But yeah, in terms of blowing your nose, you're supposed to clean your nose before you start Salah. That's why we make wudu. We clear the phlegm from our throat by gargling. We blow our nose to clear the phlegm from our nose, so that when we stand in Salah, there is nothing. That's why it's quite strange when people are blowing their noses or whatever, and, whatever, unless they've got a literal downpour because the poor guy's got some kind of flu, which then he's probably better off praying at home rather than coming to the masjid. Then you find that obviously people have got phlegm or whatever. That means they've not really done that before coming for Salah. Otherwise, you're praying Salah for 3-4 minutes. This guy's got a serious problem if phlegm builds up in 3 minutes, So therefore, that situation will never arise. If for whatever reason, somebody's catching a cold or whatever, and he's sneezing, he can't help it, then it's just a case of, one hand, catch it back in, one hand, catch it back in, and that's it. But not like, none of that. Okay.
What if you have like a runny nose, but it's not like your flu, so you're still praying Jama'a. You have a runny nose and you keep a tissue in your left hand.
That's okay. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Every now and then.
That's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's kept in a subtle way and it's not interfering with the prayer. Yeah, there's nothing wrong in that. So we've hit 1 hour 10 minutes, chaps. And you guys aren't looking like you're going to stop. So maybe Ustad has to say we're not going to stop. So inshallah, I'm just going to go to see if any other questions. No, you fire away, kid.
No, Azan's about to start.
Oh, Azan's about to start.
So if you're in Salah and somebody walks past, you are allowed to stop them with your hand.
We tend not to do that as such, but because again, it comes under action. So but try to go in a place where that's not going to happen.
Can I just ask you a quick ruling about walking in front of people? Like, what extent that in a hall, like say this size or masjid downstairs, can we walk by somebody, say somebody praying here?
There's ikhtilaf.
Yeah.
Some will say just the size of one saf. Some will say 2. Some will say 3. So you will base that on the surroundings of the masjid you're in.
Okay.
When you're leaving this kind of masjid, especially after Taraweeh, it's a bit, So as long as you're leaving one space, that should suffice. But if you're in a masjid that there's a lot more flexibility, then you can leave up to 2. It's just so that you don't cut his path.
Would this line consider a sutra?
No. A sutra is something which is about 1.1 meters tall-ish, and sort of, that kind of width.
You could do it. So if you had access to a chain, you could easily just put the chain.
Yeah, that's it. That's what you would do.
Some people do that. So that once you're praying, they'll put something there and then they'll
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.